So in this video we're going to look at some Force mechanics, specifically how the dark side works, and how accessible available Force power increases over time. So the dark side is death, and thus not inherently part of the living Force. It exists in the cosmic Force, aka your mind, and when used it corrupts your living Force, it corrupts the living Force. When someone dies in Star Wars, the energies are assimilated into the cosmic Force, which then feeds back into new life, aka the living Force. And so when a Sith dies, his energies are fully corrupted by the dark side of the Force. So there is no life energy left to feed back into the cycle of rebirth.
All energy from the living Force, from all things that have ever lived, feeds into the cosmic Force.
A Force user fully corrupted by the dark side to the point where there is no living Force left is just a dark side or Sith spirit. And a Sith spirit upon death goes to hell. And yes, hell is a thing in Star Wars, it's known as chaos, and it's where dead Sith go. And hell exists in the cosmic Force. So those corrupted light side, aka living Force energies, now become part of the cosmic dark side upon death.
The great dark side lords of the past had doomed themselves to the nether realm.
Now, what people don't often understand is that chaos, or hell, is actually synonymous with the dark side itself. When a Sith uses the dark side, he's tapping into hell, he's tapping into chaos. Moraband, also known as Moraband, is the physical manifestation of hell in the universe. The word Moraband is derived from the word moribund, which means at point of death, which of course is why the Sith spirits manifest there on Moraband, on Moraband. The cosmic will of the dark side is the collective voice of all those dead Sith. It's the collective and accumulative voice of all the dead Sith, or the Sith that have gone prior, which is why you have all the voices of all the past Sith anointing Palpatine as the new Dark Lord. All the Sith Lords, all the past Sith Lords and all their voices have to come together as one to anoint Palpatine and manifest themselves within Palpatine as the new Dark Lord.
It was less a transformation than an intensification, a gravitic shift. A welter of voices near and far, present and from eons past, drowned his thoughts. Raised in praise, the voices proclaimed his reign and cheered the inauguration of a new order. Yellow eyes lifted to the night sky, he saw the trembling stars flare, and in the depth of his being, he felt the power of the dark side anoint him.
An amalgamation of Sith spirits manifesting as Marka Ragnos to anoint Exar Kun as the new Dark Lord as well. And this is also why you have Bane and Revan speaking to the sun on Mortis as the will of the cosmic dark side.
We are those who have come before, those who were betrayed, those who hate. We are the wielders of the dark side.
All who master dark power become dark power. When a Sith dies, their power becomes part of the well of power that is then wielded by Sith that come after them. Providing, of course, that they gain mastery sufficient enough to wield all that energy. And so when you become the Master or the reigning Dark Lord, all of the spirits of the past manifest in you. Holding the mantle of Dark Lord gives you the key to hell, basically. Plagueis novel talks about how Palpatine and Plagueis are agents of chaos, who harness the power of chaos and exploit it.
Through us, the powers of chaos are harnessed and exploited. Dark times don't simply emerge, Sidious.
The past Sith enlivened and became the power that the current Sith wield.
For the first time, he could feel the force of the dark side not as a mere supporting wind fluffing the sails of a pleasure boat, but as a hurricane eager to loose a storm of destruction on the crumbling Republic and the indolent Jedi Order. And in the eye of that cycloning storm, he could hear the faraway voices of all those who had laid the groundwork of the Sith's imperative, the grand plan. Those who had enlivened the hurricane with their breath and lives.
Exar Kun is described as the main inheritor of Sith powers. He's inherited all the powers of the Sith who came before him, as seen with all the past Sith anointing him through Ragnos when all the Sith manifest in Ragnos. And I think that's a very strong indication there that Exar Kun is the strongest Sith since Ragnos, because the spirits manifested in Ragnos are not, say, Naga Sadow or Junta Paul. Fact File 33 talks about how with every Sith Lord laid to rest on Moraband, the Sith became increasingly powerful, and that power of the dark side grows with the more Sith who die and become part of it. So the Sith's powers are being passed down from generation to generation. Essential Guide to Characters tells us that upon getting the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith, Vader gains access to the evil forces of tens of thousands of years, and controls the evil forces of tens of thousands of years. And this gets mirrored again in official Topps info cards. Kevin J. Anderson confirms that all of this came directly from George Lucas, who laid out to them what exactly a Sith is and how they work, and how all of this functions. Basically, George Lucas has laid this out to the people who made Tales of the Jedi and wrote all those comics and stuff. Lucas's Force Planet arc in Clone Wars Season 6, where Yoda goes to the Force Planet, Omniscient Qui-Gon states that the dark side has always been growing since time's inception.
Such darkness, such evil. When will this happen?
It is happening right now. It has always been happening. With each day the Clone War wages, evil is growing in its power.
And connect that to the sun ever growing. The sun has been growing stronger the entire time.
And the sun who drifts ever closer to the dark.
And of course that's all synonymous with the power growing the entire time. You know, the Sith building up in hell. As we talked about, the dark side, or chaos, exists in the cosmic force, which is in your mind, and Lucas calls the cosmic force heaven.
Well, that's, conceptually, when you get into the force and you get into the living force and the uber force, which is basically, well, however you want to call it, heaven, or...
And says that we have to tap into that netherworld of energies. He says that you tap into the powers of your ancestors. As seen in shamanism, you gather their powers, and your ancestors are part of who you are, which is why Lucas writes crave personal history as part of his initial notes on the fundamentals of the Force.
Now, Defiler, you will see the power you sought to steal. The power of our ancestor, the Sith magician Naga-Sadow.
Well, I came to find the heart of the dark side. This must be it. By the Force.
Now, Interloper, you die.
Book of Sith says that when a Sith sorcerer speaks, he gives voice to the 1,000 mages who went before him. The magic in George Lucas's Willow is exactly the same as the Force, and actually reveals a lot of Force lore. And the Willow Sourcebook actually directly mirrors this comment. It talks about wizards using the legacy of power from past incantations. And this is how people draw on all the Jedi or all the Sith, like Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, Luke in Dark Empire, or Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
Every Jedi who ever lived lives in you.
I am all the Sith.
And I... I'm all the Jedi.
And then Palpatine represents the same thing, of course, as well. And his spirit is the spirit of all the Sith. He's the culmination and manifestation of all of the Sith. The sequels just recycled all of this from already established lore. It's not really something new that they did. This was all already just in the books and in the films themselves, but was a lot more encrypted than they make it out to be in the sequels. They make it a lot more abundant and apparent in the sequels, which is probably one of the only good things about The Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion. I like how it does give some further commentary on already established concepts, because I don't think many people knew this concept even existed in Star Wars before The Rise of Skywalker came out, for example. So the accessible power of all the Sith and Jedi is increasingly growing over time, ultimately resulting in more and more powerful Force users as time goes on. Not automatically though, there's still a mastery element to it, and the living Force still plays a factor, there's still living Force factors to consider, but the accessible cosmic well of power is increasingly growing, and the goal of the Sith, of course, is to embody that power. Let me know if you like this video and what you want to see next, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.